But we begin this morning with the latest on a decades-long plan to completely make over the once heavily polluted Glen Cove waterfront. The city says that it's finally ready to put shovels in the ground, but there are some residents and neighbors going to court now to try to halt this project again. TV 1055's Carolyn Gushoff explains.
The shores of Glen Cove, for decades, an untapped jewel marred with industrial pollution, a Superfund site. But 20 years of cleanup and planning promised a destination.
It was supposed to be marina, waterfront, restaurants, shops, retail.
Now residents claim they've been blindsided by 11th hour changes.
We never expected a huge monstrosity.
It's just too big. I think it's going to be a worst case scenario.
New plans for Garvey's Point now include 2 residential towers, 12 stories each, with 1,100 units. Opponents dub it an urban-scale giant they fear will tap out roads and services and mar waterfront views for miles.
It's completely out of character with what exists here. I mean, there is nothing like it on Long Island anywhere.
Size comparisons include massive RXR Plaza in Uniondale, home to the project's developer, who says building up rather than out offers more public green space.
Use the playgrounds, use the parks, walk along the new boardwalk. There will be an amphitheater, and it's an area that will be, we believe, will be a cultural center and a destination.
Glen Cove's mayor cites years of studies and hearings, a vast improvement, he says, over decades of crumbling industry.
This project, I believe, is going to transform Glen Cove. It will bring us baby boomers, young professionals, and we'll get people in the city with disposable income.
This redevelopment is a regional issue.
Neighboring Seacliff planning to sue. Its mayor claims Glen Cove broke a 15-year-old agreement that the waterfront project would be half the size.
What they're looking to create is the largest building in Nassau-Suffolk County, right on the waterfront.
With shovels in the ground planned for spring, does opposition come 20 years too late? Opponents say they don't think so. They're lobbying to dump the deal. In Glen Cove, Long Island, Carolyn Gushoff, TV 1055.
And joining us now is Glen Cove Mayor Reginald Spinello to talk about where this all stands. And welcome to the show, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, as you pointed out, it's been decades of talk and controversy. Do you think now, after all of this, though, that these lawsuits that have popped up are going to stop this project from going forward?
Every time you have a project that's transformative like this, you'll always get pushback and you'll always get a lawsuit. This lawsuit, I believe, has no standings. The project will move forward. This project's been endorsed by economic development councils, by regional councils, by planning councils. This is a well-thought-out project, and for people to say that this is an 11th hour change, it is just silly. The fact is, this project began in 2003, and what was approved that they're objecting to began in 2011. The project is what was approved after many, many public hearings, and nothing has changed. In fact, the only thing that's changed is that the density has actually been reduced. I've worked with the redeveloper, and the density on the project's been reduced by over 20%.
Yeah, these are the competing arguments. Why, in this case, is bigger better by consolidating it like that?
You know, you have to remember, when you go back to the original project, it was 16 stories. At that time, I was opposed to it. Now it's 12. It's actually 11 stories. The proposal was 4 buildings. Now it's 2 buildings. And if you look at it, it's actually stepped back. So the sight corridors, the view corridors are terrific.
Yeah, because you got the neighbors saying it's going to ruin our sight, our view of the harbor.
Well, let's look at the choices. Imagine building nothing, and then you have 56 acres that are undeveloped that haven't finished remediation, or you have a vibrant waterfront that everyone can enjoy.
And then you have the Seacliff mayor there saying he had a binding 2000 agreement for a project that was half the size of what you're planning to move forward with? In
2000, there was a memorandum of understanding.
It's not binding?
No, it's a simple memorandum of understanding. It's certainly not binding to the planning board. And you cannot, I'm not an attorney, but you can't take an agreement that's 15 years old and at the 11th hour pull it out and say, this is of significance. That would prejudice the project, the developer, and everything else. That's not the way that it works.
I see. Now you have both sides saying 11th hour. You feel that's 11th hour on their behalf. So let's say the lawsuits, in your opinion, are not successful, as you say. And explain what exactly is going to be in this plan if it moves forward, besides those towers.
Well, what you have is you have first of all, you have a very successful public-private partnership supported by county, state, and federal agencies that's going to take 56 acres of once polluted property and put it on the tax roll, make it desirable waterfront living. With this project isn't just 1,100 units. It's parks, it's beaches, it's an ecology pier, there's restaurants, there's bike trails, there's an esplanade, there's a ferry terminal, and there's a ferry terminal service that's going to start next year, high speed.
Yeah, we have some video of the proposed ferry terminal. You can see it there. It looks to be nearly complete.
Yes.
And what about the walkway there? Is everything ready to go with that? When will we see a ferry pulling up there?
We're going to go out to RFP the beginning of the year. So I would say in the spring there would be high-speed ferry service to the city, and that would probably take about 50 minutes.
Because this replaces, at one time there was ferry service in Glen Cove.
There was ferry service actually twice in Glen Cove.
Right.
And now, you know, ferry service in the past didn't work, but now it's a whole different economy. You know, the economics of things. The fact is that you take Red Hook and other areas, there's communities that have actually grown and developed because of ferry service.
And I believe that was where we'll see some of the housing, right? It panned over to the right there.
There'll be some, to the western portion, to the west of that,
right.
That's where you'll see the ownership component. And to the east, you'll see the rental units. Half of the project will be rental, half of them will be ownership. There'll be a few marinas, there'll be parks, restaurants. It's a tremendous project, and it has the support of many, many people. And don't forget what this is going to do for Glen Cove. This is basically going to help us because our goal is to make ourselves the center of commerce, recreation,
and it'll help balance the books.
It's going to be tremendous for us financially.
Well, we have just enough time to talk about another topic that's come up. You've been in the news a lot, Mayor. This proposal to keep people from using the parking spots over the Long Island Railroad Station. What was voted on by the council there?
Well, that was unanimously approved. Basically, I wanted to protect the residents of Glen Cove. During the winter last year, we had a few phone calls about people having trouble getting parking space, local residents. Two of the lots, the north lots, the street train stations in Glen Cove. The north lot at Glen Cove and Glen Street Station belong to Glen Cove. That's a total of 180 spaces out of a little over 400 spaces.
So people will be fined if they go in there, right?
If non-residents will be fined $250 after the new year if they park in those spaces.
But you also kind of held out the possibility of going a different route with this. And why and how would you do that?
You can go to registrations, to permitting. I think this will alleviate the problem. It's least invasive for everybody, and that's where we'll start.
Well, we got a big problem with parking at the Long Island Railroad stations, and the whole island is facing it, and everybody's under pressure to try to provide something. But thank you for the update today, Mayor Reginald Spinello, Glen Cove. Thanks for telling us what's coming ahead. We'll be following what happens in the courts and see whether or not we actually see those shovels in the ground after decades of talk.
You will, and I'll invite you there.
All right, and we'll be there with our cameras. Thank you very much.